So another thing we have to do before we build is make sure that we have our colliders enabled for the appropriate items that we planted. I talked about this earlier, and you essentially had two options. You could either enable them earlier and then turn off the visibility so it wasn't dragging down your Unity editor, or you could wait to the very end. And I'll kind of address both of those here. But the bottom line is either way, we want to make sure that our colliders are being produced correctly. So let's go into Unity, and I got my scene set up here, and we need to decide essentially what we're going to put colliders on. And you don't necessarily want to put them on everything, especially grasses. We do not want to put colliders on our grasses. That's just a cruel joke. Let's let the game decide, how grasses are going to react. So let's first come up here and let's go to our biome number 1. Remember that was this biome mask area over here. And let's look at our items here. We've got a couple different rocks, okay? A couple different trees and grasses. And remember, we definitely don't want to put colliders on our grasses. So we're not going to do anything regarding colliders. And I don't think we can even enable these for grasses anyway. VSPro doesn't let you do it. But let's look at our rocks. And we have quite a few rocks over here. And this could go either way for me, which is, I don't know if I would enable colliders. There's quite a few. If someone hits it over here, you already have a hard enough time getting out from behind the trees. Now, if you're lying behind one of these rocks, it could go either way, but I'm going to show you how to turn them on in case you would like to. So let's look at this first rock. What we're going to do is highlight the rock, and then what we do have to do is we have to scroll down to the collider section, and then we're just going to do from prefab. And if you recall, that rock type, rock 6A, has a mesh collider on it already. So that's where we're getting this collider functionality from. So we got that. We enabled the collider down here. Where to go? I hate finding this section, colliders. And we want to make sure that our distance factor is all the way out here to 1, because we want to make sure that this mesh is shown, okay, or actually is produced way before the ball hits there. So let's do current distance 261 meters. We want to make sure that's the same for all of them. And we immediately start to see, if I move around and adjust the size, we begin to see that we got our mesh colliders here. Now remember, you might have disabled the visibility for these in here. Let me see, mesh collider is on, but it looks like I've got sphere collider turned off. So I want to make sure that's on, and maybe yes, and I did disable capsule collider as well. That's going to come in handy here in a second. So let's do our second rock. Let's go down here. Did I pass? Yep, collider. Let me from prefab, and yep, we want to make sure that render distance is out here to 1, and that looks pretty good. So we got our rocks figured out here, and something, this is going to be taxing, so I'm just going to turn off my mesh. Those look good, so I'm just going to turn off my mesh collider here, so to save a little compute power. Now let's do our trees. So back up here at the top, and this is tedious, but you only have to do it once. This is why I wait till the very end. Scroll down here again, get to my collider section. I always miss it. Where'd it go? Billboards, normal lot setting. There we go. Collider from prefab, and you can see my spheres and my capsules are showing up here, so that looks good. My render distance, yep, I want that out at 1, so it's 260 out, and that looks good. So let's look at the next one in this list, the conifer. Scroll down. And I'm sorry, this might be a little boring. You might get the point here. Prefab and all out. And let me just see, I don't see a conifer here. Yeah, there's a couple, there's one right there, and we can see that that looks good as well. So it looks like that biome is done, and I'm getting my clipping. Do my human trick again here. Whoa. What's going on there? I got some, oh, did I accidentally made some wonky terrain changes here, folks. Look at that. That is going to be interesting to fix. Well, I'm not sure. That looks like an errant brush stroke or something here. Wow. Found that by accident. Well, I'll have to fix that. I'll have to hopefully that's not on my backup. Well, anyway, not your problem, that's my problem. And that's why we do those terrain backups all the time, right? So we can recover from stuff like that. Now let's look at this, our persistent planting stuff. Let's go back in the Vegetation Studio Pro. Let's go into my persistent planting biome, and I'll do the same thing for my rocks. There's my collider down here. Oh, this one's already turned on. Distance factor 261, so that's looking pretty good. And let me just turn on my mesh collider again to make sure that that looks normal. Mesh collider turned on. Not showing up on my persistent rocks though. That's a concern. All right, so my mistake is your learning experience. So what I found was, remember, this selection up here when I'm doing my persistent planning is different from the biome that I'm editing, right? So this is my persistent vegetation storage script, and I had my persistent biome selected. Well, down here, when I do my edit biomes, I was still on this one, and I had this rock selected, and that was already enabled. What I needed to do was make sure I've got the right biome selected that I'm editing, which is my persistent one here. And now if I go down and select that first rock, you'll see that my collider is not enabled. So I'm going to do from prefab. And now you can see that they're showing up correctly. So let's go back up here to make sure I'm in the right section here again. Yep. My second rock, prefab, enable, and I want to make sure that this is all the way up at 1. Now I can't remember if I set it for 1 for the first one as well. Let's see, did I? Nope, that would have been a problem. Got to make sure I got these rendered out correctly. Okay, make sure that's set to 1. Yep, they're looking good now. And let's go back up and do the tree. It should be their last thing here. So this biome, we only have this tree planted, so I'm only going to enable it for that. But I should probably do both in case I were to plant both, but you guys get the idea here. Let's go down from prefab. It's set to 1. If I scroll out, I should see it now. And now we have all of our colliders enabled. You can see that. And you can start to see how things are getting a little bit choppy, I hope. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what about this biome out here, these billboards? We're never going to hit a golf ball out there, right? So I'm not even going to bother putting colliders. It would just be a resource drain. So at this point, all of our colliders are ready to go.